Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for being here. The best place to be at this best moment ever, with beautiful spirits who are going to share the rawness, the spirit of yesterday, today, now, and moving forward. Some assignments, right? I'm going to welcome first civil rights veteran, Black Panther and Black Liberation Army, Ashanti Alston, correct? And I am going to welcome also mYia as Rhode Island Mass Solidarity and Black October, who's on the Black October Committee. They're not just sitting here as people to give you information of what they have learned, but people of experience, people of spirit. The spirit's not just to write down and say that you heard. These are witnesses of what took place, things that they tried to erase, a history that needs to be shared, people's spirits who have been put through the illegal justices. They're going to carry their voices forward. This information is falling on their spirit for you to share, not for you to keep on your chest and hold as your own. You're in here as witnesses of what took place so that things can never be erased. We won't allow that. Your purpose is not just as you imagine it to be, but Spirit has assigned you to imagine it. So I welcome all of you, we welcome all of you, and we're going to speak raw truths. If everyone can please turn off their phones, because we wish not to be interrupted by sirens no more. If there's going to be outside conversations in here, please carry that conversation to the side or outside, please. And we want to begin with Ashanti Alston. If there's anything that you would like to share first. And I'm sure there's much.
Okay. Well, the first thing is say I'm very honored to be here. I just came back from Buffalo, New York, and Niagara Falls, speaking to a group of young activists, me and a few other people. And one of the people who also spoke to the group was one of my comrades who I've known for probably 20 years, who's from the Seneca Nation. And so we hadn't seen each other in so long, but it was so good that we're both still doing this work. You know, we're both still focused on this empire, you know, and we always want to let people know that whatever changes we want to happen in this empire, you cannot forget that this is Turtle Island, and what it did to the indigenous folks and what it continues to do. What it did to African folks and what it continues to do. And if you can keep them things in mind, it's less likely that you will be bamboozled, as Malcolm would say, into thinking that you can change this empire that became an empire because of what it has done and continues to do to us, right? You cannot change a monster. You can't change a monster. You can't plead, you know, for rational thought and all this other stuff. They have built this up off our backs. Power, money, everything. You don't give that up without a fight. But we show, like, from our people coming together, we can change anything. That no capitalist, no racist can stop the power of the people, right? So you'll hear me later on talk about a little bit about the Panthers and all the other stuff, but the thing I want you to get from the Black Panther Party, we said all power to the people, all power. That is the only way that we can change this madness. So that's my opening. I said it to them young folks, I say it to you. And I say nothing is impossible. So let's really believe that. Let's, you know, from this gathering here, let's make sure that, you know, we figure out ways to keep building, keep uniting, so that our dreams can be the ones that rise to the top. That's all.
And I will say this, it's such an honor to stand here and be a moderator amongst such greatness. And I'm humbled because many just see a flesh, but I see a spirit that put themselves and their lives down on the line for those who threw stones and considered you troublemakers and couldn't associate themselves with you, even your very own at times. And now today it's been proven over and over, shame on them. And I am very, very proud to be in your presence. I'm sure everyone else is, because we hold you in the highest. So I hope. mYia, please, would you like to share?
I think some of that video also encapsulates for me, I still see myself as a revolutionary student. And it's very important because there's still so much to learn. And still so much.
Could you lift up your voice because there's people in the back?
Yeah, I got a little cough going on, but I'm gonna do my best to project. And so one of the things that for me and how I honor those that stand alongside us and those that came before us and the sacrifices of our struggles is to, whenever I travel, to bring a little mini exhibit. And these are the types of things that, oh, thank you. Oh, thank you. Hello? I don't know how to use the mic, but, all right, thank you. You said you did? As you said earlier, Bella, you know, we were talking about Baldwin, and you said when you see an image of him, you imagine jazz music playing in the background every time you see him.
There you go.
Yeah, and so a little bit about me, you know, I came to this country from Jamaica, and born and raised as a Rastafarian that's rooted in Pan-Africanism. And then as I grew and studied, you know, transitioned or evolved and expanded into being a revolutionary student and understanding socialism. Can y'all hear me? And so, and I take it very, very serious, the mission. And the mission is liberation. And, you know, as the shirt says over there with Bella Khalid and Malcolm X, liberation by any means possible. You know, I come from a country where Rastafarians were murdered, dragged through the streets, locks were cut off, but our culture has been commodified into this, like, summary that just says Bob Marley and cannabis. And they lose the revolutionary struggle. And how, you know, for me growing up and learning in Jamaica about the struggles in apartheid South Africa and how that was connected, how most people don't know that, you know, Ashanti Alston folks be joining our meetings, y'all.
And let it be known that there will always be an energy to stop us. We had the accident first with the police, and now we have this, but there's nothing going to stop us. Our voice is going to hear. Okay. And so that's just a little bit of the introduction. And one of the pieces that I'm wearing today is a sweatshirt that was given to me by my comrade in Texas, Gloria. And it's a picture of Shaka Sankofa. Does anyone in here know the name Shaka Sankofa?
Raise your hand if you know Shaka. Can I get like a sentence or two so the audience can know who Shaka Sankofa was and is?
Know of this person as a political prisoner, but I don't know him more than any other political prisoner. Not that I'm an expert, I heard.
Yes. Anybody else? Shaka Sankofa? Okay, so I'll give a brief synopsis, right? There's a President, George W. Bush, who signed the death warrant, and Shaka Sankofa was killed and murdered by the state of Texas. And I remember watching a VCR tape. Y'all remember VCRs? Right, and the tapes? And one of the things that moved me was watching the VCR tape of what Baba Ashanti just said about the people, right? And when the people come together, and how people were outside the death chamber, you know, to the very end, just raising their voice, right? And how that felt for me watching it, and then fast forward almost 10, 15 years later, I'm on the street for Troy Davis. And I remember being on the street when we heard a word that said that he'd been given a stay, right? And then people started to leave the streets. And then next thing we heard, he was executed. You know, and so these things are still happening. The system is still unjust. And so as we go forward in the conversation today, and to pull in what Bella says about assignment, the assignment is we got some political prisoners that are still behind the wall today. And we need the people to come together, whoever your circles are, your networks are, and connect with the organizations that can help you to carry that forward, because we need to free mYia Abu Jamal. We need to free Leonard Peltier. Imagine going before the parole board at almost 80 years old, I believe, Leonard, and you get told that denied and you can come back in 2039. This is the system, right? And it's the same thing we saw with mYia Abu Jamal. So Black August for me is just kind of that remembrance that the work is still need to be done. Right there, I had the opportunity to be at We Still Charge Genocide. And when I tell folks about, we were at the, visit to the United Nations about genocide happening in the United States, the Black, brown, and indigenous people. Most people are like, what? What are they talking about? And so we also have to be our own media, because the mainstream media is not going to tell our stories, right? So if we're not out there capturing this, we have to be the media, we have to be the archivist. Because I was taught that the archivist puts the things in the box that the historians open. And so how we capture the stories, how we capture and how we tell, and I don't want to use the word capture, how we hold these stories, and how we share them, and then how we activate. Because right now, the system is moving like they're very, very comfortable. And we need to get them to that place of being uncomfortable. Uncomfortable to the place where they release our people and bring them home.
So, I would share that exposure is on the rise. Nobody likes to be exposed for their dirty doings. Exposure is on the rise. I have 15,000 followers. I don't know how many you have. But in my 15,000, only one person needs to share. And then that person shares. So what they are saying today needs to be shared. We have Steve Elquist here today, who records most of our meetings and our gatherings. We need to be recording our very own, because that information belongs with us so that we are not erased. We need to carry that message, and each and every single one of you in here, I'm in here for purpose, to listen to this panel right here, because everything that they say is the reason why you got your civil rights and your healthy lifestyles and your comfortable health styles. It's not from the backs of anything but these brave leaders here today, and those before them, and those who died trying to get the civil rights of today here. The troublemakers, they were called. The ones who were silenced and murdered. The ones who are behind bars still today that are silenced. You don't even know about. You can't even speak about. Our voices are being stripped. But you know your face is right here? You are that gateway into another world, into another dimension, into another people that we don't even know. They silence voices like ours. But your door, your faces can open up a lot of doors. So take that information that you hear today, carry it in your spirit. Don't just see it as a history lesson. The books that you read in the schools, that's not our history. That's the history of the oppressors. So I ask, please, if you can share how the movement got started. Who did we lose? The important voices of yesterday. What can we gather from those voices to bring forward to today? And how they assassinated your character so that they can accuse you of whatever to silence the movie and make you that troublemaker in the eyes of the courts.
But some of that I cannot. I hope I can answer. Y'all can hear me? Mm-hmm. Okay. I feel like I came into the movement at 14, 1967, rebellions, you know. And before that, I mean, we knew about the civil rights movement, all that other stuff, but it was the Black Power movement that caught a lot of us young folks, because it was different from the civil rights movement. The civil rights movement, they were being kind of manipulated into fighting for integration, or fighting for the vote as if the vote was the thing that we should, it was a substitute for freedom. So we got so caught up into just the vote. Now Black Power was talking about, why don't we stay focused on liberation? Why do we keep playing their game? Why can't we think about taking over our communities by any means necessary, by any means possible? And for someone like me, and a lot my age, we understood the civil rights movement, we understood the discipline, but we could not see ourselves doing nonviolent sit-ins and stuff, and then here comes the fire department and the police, and with the water hoses, and they just turn the water hoses on you like you're a bunch of roaches, and here you go floating down the street, and then they arrest you. Many of us wanted to fight back. Teenagers, no different from what you might see Palestine, what you might see in other places. And you gotta sometimes remember too, Jesus, teenager, giving his mama and papa, you know, headache and gray hair, like I'm sure we did too. But young people understand what's going on. So we wanted to get involved. And later from the Black Power movement, we found out about the Black Panther Party. But Malcolm had already been killed in 1968. Martin Luther King, 65. Martin Luther King in 68. Fred Hampton of the Black Panther Party in 1969. We are losing people. This government is not playing. They are arresting people, all kind of false charges. This is what they do. That's why when you hear me say you cannot reform a monster. You can't reform a monster. You can't put somebody in the presidency and expect that, oh, that's your savior. And I say that specifically because we got somebody running today that we're going to act like this person is going to save us. You can't save an empire built off of your destruction, your misery. So, in joining the Panther Party, we was also moving into this role of a revolutionary. Like when mYia talk about, I always consider myself a revolutionary student. You know, I'm 70 years old, you know, learning all the time, because we have to figure out how to bring this monster to his knees. That's George Jackson's word when you see a little bit about George Jackson. You know, and an important part of even Black August is that it started from those political prisoners in California prisons. San Quentin. So, and the thing is, Black August might be spreading now. It might be getting a little bit more popular, but without the connection to the political prisoners. Yuri Kochiyama is this Japanese-American woman, very close to Malcolm X. If anybody's read autobiography of Malcolm X, was it the hardback or was it the soft cover? What is it?
Mine was soft.
Soft cover don't have pictures. If you ever find a copy of the hard cover, it has pictures in the middle. You see in one of the pictures of Yuri Kochiyama, when Malcolm was shot, she was one of them over him trying to resuscitate him. She's someone that we knew well, right? She said that the political prisoners are the heartbeat of our movements. If you can picture movement heartbeat inside the prison, it might give you a whole different perspective on why it's important to free our political prisoners. It's also like freeing our heartbeat inside this cave, these caves that they call prisons, we call concentration camps. But this is what's happening, so it's like they're either killing us, running us into exile, or throwing us into these prisons and throwing away the key. But when we don't come to defend them and to work for their release, we're also saying it's all right that our heart is just confined in these caves and we just want to go on with our lives. Black August is trying to help you make a connection with the lives of those deep in these prisons, right here in Rhode Island too. I was really surprised at that body count one up there. You know, even in Rhode Island prisons, to see the importance of linking with those who are least able to defend themselves because they are locked up in such manners that they have no way to defend themselves, and you have to be their voice. You have to be the one who comes to their aid. Men's prisons, women's prisons. There's political prisoners in both of them, whether they call themselves that or not, and also to not think that the women are not also engaging in forms of resistance. It may be different from what the men do, but no one is in prison just, you know, languishing in there like they ain't got no way to do. They're always fighting back. Our people, all of our different peoples, have got to reach inside to get our heartbeat. You got to get it and connect it to the work that you're doing right here in these communities. If not, then you're just fighting for some privileged folks, yourself included, who's not in prison. If we want to deepen our struggles to make it really total, connect with those. And we have our stories. And I'm going to be brief. It goes back to Niagara when we was doing this talk at Niagara University. Jason, my comrade from the Seneca Nation, he was encouraging these young people to know their stories. Know how you got here. Why are you here at this very moment? Who's your folks? Who's your ancestors? What happened to you during the journey that brought you here, whether it was your decision or against your will? African folks, the majority of us here, did not come here by choice. We came here in the bottom of slave ships. You know, we have to know our stories, and our stories are also with those like George Jackson and them who are raising their voices from the depths of these prisons and were still able to inspire folks on the outside to believe that we could change our lives, that revolution was possible. So just to think of that, I might be talking a little too much, But I want you to always think of that. In the course of that, we lose people. But even myself, when we were losing people, our attitude was, oh, you just killed Twyman Myers? The newspaper said they broke the back of the BLA. When they said that and put it in the newspapers, there were those of us who were just Panthers. We said, oh, it's our turn to join the Black Liberation Army. We're going to keep this going. Same thing with Leonard Peltier and them, and listen, he's 78 years old. Even going blind, diabetes and other things, he still inspires people. We still do what we can. We just need you to pick it up. Pick up that torch. You know, as Asada say, you know, carry it on. That way we cannot lose. We cannot lose. If you do it, if you believe it, anything is possible. So connect with those who don't have a voice, who are locked up behind these walls. We have to connect with them.
I would also like to mention, don't feel so safe in what you consider your freedom. It's a very fragile thing. And anyone a shade darker than white, you are black in their eyes. I don't care if you want to break apart from the blackness, you are black. They're not going to pull you over and say, oh, you got a little bit of Puerto Rican, you got a little bit of Native American. They don't care about that. You are black. And then socioeconomically, you are poor. So you're never going to be seen as what you wish to be for your protection and your comfort. Because me, in my blackness and my native indigenous self, I am very happy, and if I could be born again me, I want to be me again. So I'm very happy with this. The native people and the black community are braided together. They are one. They are the first people here. So when I speak of when I carry my voice, I don't carry it without the black community. There's no way. We are braided together, perfectly woven together. And before there was anyone else, there was a we. And many of that has been paid, again, for everybody else to benefit. And once we strengthen blackness, once we strengthen that and we protect that, everybody else is fine. Because again, everybody benefits from blackness. I'll make that clear, I'll say it again. Everybody benefited from the black people, and still do. I would like to ask, because you've been around so many great people who led the way, and you have sat in so many rooms and you've been a part of that energy, those voices they shared with you. You've been entrusted with a lot of information. And you sit here today very humble, but we would ask that you share some of the messages, some of the information, a lot of what you know. Because when they walk away, they're going to be a little richer than they stepped in this doorway. Please.
If I could impart one thing, Bella Leonard, do you mind? Your piece with the daily news, the barbecue, can you bring it right here?
Okay.
So I wonder if someone wants to read it.
I can read that.
Yeah.
And I think my voice really carries. So.
Because in the spirit of Black August, and you know, when we think about Black August, August was also the Nat Turner rebellions that happened in August. And when I first met Baba Leonard, and he shared so much of his art with me, and really this piece is a reminder of what still happens, but it's not broadcasted. And this was how audacious our open enemy was, that this was the ad that was in their daily news. So I would like, if Bella's gonna read it or anyone wants to read it, because hearing the words out loud is important, because, you know, there's a, Tony K. Bambara said, words are electric, you know, and they conjure things. And so when we see like who it is that we are dealing with, as Baba Ashanti said, you can't reform this beast, right? So we can't fall into the illusion when people create reform alliances, because reform, you cannot reform this system. You can't go to the merciless and say, please have mercy on me, because this is who they are. And it continues today, so if we could read that out.
I am going to ask a younger generation to read this, because it's going to carry an echo. So Mo, if you can come up here and read this, please. Hello? Why are you looking back? I'm asking you, yes. And our coach will be passing these on to the generation so that it echoes.
Okay. This right here is going to give the context before you read this. If you can read this.
Dolby?
Yep. And then we're going to get to this. Thank you.
Unvarnished facts. It's time to quit ignoring history and set our minds on the right track, and to demand the rights of full citizenship in this age of the Patriot Act. Can we afford to ignore lynchings and stealthy racist attacks? Or to forget full-page ads in old newspapers that state the following facts? You're invited to a festive event put on by the country court, the sheriff, and the mayor. Trains will be running extra trips so your friends from near and far will be there. We're having a barbecue, so pack a picnic basket and dust off your Sunday best. For 50 cents, you can get your picture made with your foot resting on the burnt nigger's chest. We ain't going to beat or burn him until after the surgery below his belt. We want to keep him alive while the sweet aroma of his burning flesh is being smelt. When he dies, we're going to cut pieces of his corpse to sell as souvenirs. We know you won't want to miss the event that will be the talk of the town for years. This is a white-only event, and we know there will be just one nigger in the crowd. We got one with a deep voice this time to make sure the screams of agony will be loud. We want you all to know that we know that this nigger did not commit any crime. We just want to have a little fun and keep the rest of the niggers around here in line. Civil rights progress depends on us speaking out against the civil wrongs that we see, and telling the whole truth just like it is and not like so many wish it to be. Can it be in our best interest to remain mute in the face of such insanity, while our tax dollars finance hate crimes against members of our own family? Hear ye, in the 21st century, racist courts remain in session, with judges sending innocent blacks to prison to teach them this U.S. history lesson. The more things change, the more they remain the same, is a clear and empirical fact that defies the contempt of courts toward defendants with skin that is black. Presumptions of innocence and due process of law are concepts that cannot exist. Where PDs advise blacks to plead guilty to crimes that they did not commit, and prosecutors seek to convict innocent blacks using racism, mirrors, and smoke, thus reducing blacks' chances of getting fair trials to the level of a cruel hoax. The historic refusal of judges to respect blacks' human rights at any time sets the stage for public invitations to state-sponsored hate crimes. Lynchings and tyranny can be the only result when judges ignore these flaws, and officers of the court commit criminal acts in the name of upholding the law. It's time to quit ignoring history and set our minds on the right track, and to demand the rights of full citizenship in this age of the Patriot Act. Unless you think it's wise to ignore lynchings and stealthy racist attacks, to forget those ads in old newspapers that state the unvarnished facts.
And so,
That's deep.
I wanted to share that because I think it was just 48 hours ago, the news came down that a judge has cleared the officers in the Breonna Taylor assassination. Just imagine and let that hold for a moment. They are once again telling us we don't hold value under their system. No, right? And so going through their courts only comes to what? What we're seeing now. And they are blaming her partner. They said if he didn't fire his weapon, they wouldn't have fired theirs. And so even though we know the facts, because some people saw the videos and the body cameras, you know, it reminds me of like Gil Scott-Heron said, you know, it will be in your face. But nowadays they have the technology to lie using imagery and distort things, you know. So lynchings are still very prevalent. You know, there's a thing called, you know, death by incarceration. So when we see when they're not releasing our political prisoners, that's a death sentence. You know, and so again, what can we carry forward in this moment, in this day? I extend to the audience, you know, so far in terms of what you've heard, what are your thoughts? If I could get a few people to say, like, you know, did you know about political prisoners in the United States before this conversation? And if you did, is there an action that you've done to advance their liberation? Is there some information that you need that can connect you with actions that can be done to forward their liberation? So I'm gonna open it up to the audience for all of us. And can I say one thing? I saw Ben Evans. Ben?
Back there somewhere.
I don't know if you remember, I think our first meeting, and we were on the panel together, me, you, and Shakur, right? 2015. And your remarks have stayed with me all of these years, almost 10 years later, because you came and you told us about what happened to Hugo Pinell. Remember, you know, and again, how the apparatus works, because they had him in the hole, I believe, right? And as soon as he came out, you know, they deemed just the mere presence to be a threat that they had him assassinated. And so that again tied me back to George Jackson and the Soledad brothers, and why we were literally witnessing them commit murders, and they get to go and act like nothing didn't happen. So again, I passed that forward because I saw Ben and I just wanted to acknowledge you when I saw you come in. But for you all now, please, questions for us or your thoughts? Bella's moderator.
I just wanted to thank you for speaking, because spirit lends itself. I didn't know she could present so well, but you did, and it touched all of us.
Yes.
Does anyone have any questions for the panel?
As I look at the murders that African American people be getting killed in their own homes, just because they call 911 for help, and there seems to be a trend of these things happening. My question is, should we march? We have did that, march on the police station, march, you know, stand, laid our bodies on the highway at 95. We have did a lot of things to bring attention to these unjust murders of people. And so my question is, what is the next step? Should we arm ourselves? And like, do we take a life for it? And because I'm like, that's the only thing these devils is going to recognize. I want to say that all white folks is evil. No, there's a lot of my friends of good white folks. But the ones that has that prejudice and evil in them, how we tackle them folks. And I'm kind of struggling how to do that. When we did everything under the sun to draw attention to these legislatures and to the courts. And you know, and it's still like prices it's just falling on deaf ears.
Would you like to answer that?
One of the things that came to mind while you were talking, there's always going to be people who protest, and protests are good. But that's when you go outside of your community. What needs to happen, like say for example, police violence, it could be street organization violence. What we try to do in an organization called Critical Resistance was develop relations in the community where we wouldn't call 911 for anything, but we would try to show people in the community how we could be there for each other under all these different circumstances. That's different from going out, like you go to City Hall, you go to the police station, you protest. Those things are important, but more important is the work you do inside your community. That's why we had the survival program, we had the free breakfast program, we had the free health clinics, we had the liberation school. That was asking your enemies for nothing. It was seeing that we could have been doing that all along for ourselves. And what happens when you start turning to your own folks, you also help break within us self-doubt, self-hate, mistrust of each other, all the things that have kept us separate. You know, that became so powerful in the Black Panther Party, which at a certain point, so many people were supporting us, not only within the black community, but in the country and sometimes different parts of the world. What happens when we turn towards each other?
Right.
That becomes important.
Thank you. The young woman in the back, please.
Yeah. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Connie, and I like noticed that like my kids are African, and there's like a lot of like people, like African people that are still racist, like against like black people in America, and I have a hard time with that because I feel like they're like my people, and I'm also Native, and I don't know how to get in touch with that because like it's super easy, like because like African Americans come in style now. Everybody's got dreads and stuff like that, like, you know. And that's what I feel like. I'm also an addict. I'm mentally ill, HIV positive. I'm black. I'm overweight, right? And I got kids.
And you're beautiful.
I have a hard time with like protesting because of all those issues. Because I almost died giving birth because I was scary because I was loud while I was giving birth, so I scared the people, and I almost died from pulmonary edema because they weren't listening to me. And I didn't think that was a thing for black women. I was like, you know, they help everybody, you know, but they don't. And I have a hard time with like being a black person in America because like I'm on like SSI and all that bullshit, and like it keeps you stuck. You know, just being HIV positive keeps people stuck, you know. If you can't make over a certain amount of money, or you won't get your meds, then you die. You know what I mean? And then I just have a hard time like connecting with myself, and a lot of the trauma in my family is like generational. I was talking about, like it's not just like I know I'm talking about. I'm sorry, but like, it's not just like my mom was a bad mom. It was like her mom was taught to be a bad mom, and like not a bad mom, but an unhealthy mom. And I always see like beating kids as a way of like the white person or the slave master like beating us into submission. So we beat our kids into submission.
and like, I just have a hard time, like, I don't even know where the nearest, Native American land is, right, you go.
Where
like,
you're
go
standing
up.
right now today.
Right.
Everywhere you look.
So like, I just wanted to know like how you can like become like make like wealth for your family while still being oppressed at the same time and like getting to know yourself.
Would you like to take that?
That's a
It's
lot,
a loaded
but I think I would just start with and probably end with that piece here. When we see, right, racism has power attached in its definition, right? So sometimes when we see like someone who resembles us and they may treat us a certain way, right? The language may not be racism, but we know that this society, they constantly give messaging and they just serve up division, you know, and people dislike people for many different reasons, you know? And so when you see that experience happening, you know, I remember this quote from Malcolm X where he says, we must remember a time when we didn't know what we know, so to kind of be patient with people sometimes, you know, but not to say to accept any form of abuse, but I think in the terms when we say racism, to understand that racism has, somebody has the ability to impact your life. Like these politicians and the redlining and all of these things that come out, you know? So it's easy in society when people be like, oh, you're racist towards me because, you know, I have locks. No, you can't be, you as a black person can't be racist towards me. You may not like me, you may discriminate against me, you may even stereotype me, but you don't have power to impact my life in the way that the system of white supremacy does. So when we are clear on the use of language, because language is co-opted all the time. You know, I know there's some folks here in Rhode Island and y'all are working on like affordable housing, right? But they have totally redefined what affordable is under the system of capitalism, right? And so these are the things that we really, and so that's the only part of the comment that I really wanted to make a piece about. But we know that the struggle is real. And, you know, and as Baba Ashanti said, as the Panthers overstood that, you know, to get the people engaged, right, you go to the people. What are the needs? What, you know, what are the things that you need so that I can get you from this place here? So I think it was Chairman Fred that said it, and I could be wrong, but like about the food program, right? The people come and they love that part of the food program, and so we utilize that to educate as they're coming to get some groceries, right? Or you might link them to, I think they always have like the social worker type network in there. That's why I bought the book Body and Soul as well, to talk about anybody who is going into the health field. When you talk to doctors and you ask them, what do you know about the Black Panther Party health clinics? And if a doctor can't tell you that, I might examine and say, I might need another doctor, because that tells me that you haven't been taught revolutionary medicine. You know, you have not, you see me, but you don't see me. And so that may go back to, you know, what Sis was saying. So I think that I just wanted to clarify that piece on language. And if I could just say one more point, Baba mentioned Yuri Kochiyama. And talking of assignment, if everybody who does not know who Yuri Kochiyama is, I ask for you to write her name down and look her up. And Baba is right here to give you some insights on Yuri Kochiyama. But from what I have read, and there's a period in American history when they interned the Japanese. And I believe that that is part of what radicalized her and made that bridge, right? Because when I studied history, I remember asking someone, I was like, what was it that made John Brown say, I'm going to reject my white privilege and I'm going to go out here and raise arms against my own people in defense of the ancestors? And then we saw how they did him when they captured him and how they murdered him brutally, right? So they're trying to tell people, oh, you think you want to do what he just did? Don't even think about it, you know? And that's why we say in the movement, if you're going to say the name of Sada Shakur, do you know the name Marilyn Buck? You know, so these are the names that are concealed from the stories, as Bella talked about stories, and I think in the paperwork I talked about, there was a storytelling model that was out of Barnard College, where they talked about 4 types of stories. So first is the stock stories. That's the dominant stuff you hear in the mainstream media, right? Then you have the concealed stories, the story that they don't put anything out. You know, you don't know what happened, right? Then you have the resistance stories about the people who resisted, right? And then you have the counter stories to counter the dominant stories, right? So it's like a simplified way to look at why we don't know certain information. You know, because when I came to the United States, those books that they were teaching, yeah, they made sure you indoctrinated, you're getting straight A's in lies, right? And one of my other comrades said, you know, they send you to schools of false theology and you come out with degrees in glucology, you know? And so it's like, go in there, do what you gotta do, and then come be of service to the people. You wanna be a doctor? Right now in Boston, Massachusetts, they are closing a hospital in the black community that has served the people for decades, and they have no mercy that 1,200 people are going to lose their jobs next week, right? Because the people never knew that the hospital that you went to, that you think is a public hospital, actually is a private commodity. And when that private commodity was no longer making profit, you went on the auction block, they said nobody bid for it. So now you have people who think the strategy for them was, can we call the politician? Can you, city councilor, can you come down here? Because they're gonna close it. And then the city councilor comes and gets the people riled up and gives speeches, right? Then the governor says, I can't do nothing for you. It's a private entity, right? But 1,200 people, they don't care if you got families to feed. They don't care if you got rent to pay or mortgage to pay. They don't care about your medication if you're ill. They don't care about nothing. All they said, we're going to do a job fair, and that's it. So I would sit back all last week, I would say, I'm like, how can we get the people to watch the takeover? You know, 1971, right? 1971 takeover, right? How do we get people to watch the takeover of the Lincoln Hospital? And the strategies that were entailed with the unity of the Black Panther Party, the Young Lords, and what happened. And that's not studied enough, right? But still, it's like we think that here they come every 4 years and they tell you, this year you gotta vote, this is Kamala and this is Trump. And what does Kamala say? This is the prosecutor versus the felon. This is her message to the people, right? But at the end of the day, that's not gonna help us. So how do we go and realize that, you know, I don't know, lately in the conversation we talk about like building a united front. And that may be like, how do we break that down to the masses? What does a united front look like? So I want to go back to say, Yuri Kochiyama, if there's an assignment today, one of the assignments today, to look at Yuri Kochiyama and what her story was. Because when I look at history, when they talk about Malcolm X and the assassination, and as Baba said, she held him as he was taking his last breath. But that's not a story that fits the messaging that capitalism wants to put out about racism and divisions and so on and so forth. But this is what true solidarity looks like, you know? And how do we build that and get that concept? And what are the tools that maybe, you know, you all may say, you know, what are some of the things that may help you to be able to activate that conversation? Because right now, as George Jackson said, you know, fascism is here. We got to settle our quarrels. You know, you got some quarrels, you know, we got to settle that. And then we have to come together to understand that they're not going to have any mercy on us, right? And if we want our political prisoners, as I say, Baba, you all, that generation, y'all went and got the people. You know, it's like when people say about Assad Shakur, you know, there was a strategy around that, and they were like, we're going to liberate our people. And I know that some, you know, the tools and technologies of today, you know, may not be possible, but the fact is, like, they had a vision. There was like, nothing was going to stop us from going to liberate our comrades, or liberate our people, or to serve our people. Nothing was going to stop us. But now it's like, even with all of these tools at our hands, it's like, what are we doing?
Thank you. I'm sitting here looking at your book list over here and your markings and everything, and sometimes when I go to choose a book, I don't know about, for all of you who are documentary, I don't know who's behind it. I don't know if it's approved by the people who it should be approved from. So before we leave here, we're going to give you an assignment as well. And that assignment will be to list a couple of books or a couple of documentaries that we can go to that are approved by the people, not those people. They're not like us. Right? I've heard that before somewhere. In any event, that's an assignment that I would ask of you because I need that. Whether I'm cleaning that house or doing anything, it's going to fall on the ears of my children and myself and in my spirit. I'm going to make it a lesson or a teaching of my own to do that. There's people who have learning disabilities who don't pick up books, but they have the ability to hear and to take in. And we need to find every way that works for us to take this information and share the correct information, not the misinformation that they would like for us to believe, the diluted information, the Disney version. Okay? So, you have a question, please?
Yes. Can you spell your full name for me?
I'm sorry?
Oh, Yuri Kochiyama?
Yeah.
Y-U-R...
I don't need to.
Okay, Y-U-R-I. Kochi, K-O-C-H-I. Yama, Y-A-M-A.
That was good.
And we have another question on here, please, sir?
For me?
Yes.
Okay, I'm Carolito. Born and raised here in South Providence, been through it all and seen it all. And I'm piggybacking you a little bit on a situation when you was talking about the only one that I really see losing the battle is the youth. Because when I came up here, I'm born 1960. When I came up, they always had somewhere to go. They always had goals and dreams. You know, like they closed all down all the boys clubs and girls clubs, you know, and them things are supposed to be available all around town. Because, you know, I ain't gonna put this blood bone in my body. But because you know why? I hold on to my own power. I'm not gonna give away the power because I seen the way my mother and a lot of people in their mothers struggle to get what they got. It's all about holding on, and it's all about showing up here at these events. Because over here you get free knowledge. Don't question nothing to show here. You know? And I come over here because there's a couple of friends that work at there, and I'm a follower. You understand? Because I see the ones that are working here, the struggle they went through in life. Because I've been through a lot of struggle myself, you know, even though I'm slightly visually impaired, but like the young lady said, I can hear. I'm an elephant. I ain't gonna forget, you know, and I wish that up there on that state house thing and things like that, they would push more, they would allocate more for these kind of places, you understand? Instead of building more houses, more this and that, open up the thing. It's easy word to say a low-income house, but how you gonna get it? They're not giving out enough information over there, and I appreciate everything you did up there, young lady, because I was running late today, but I show up. Because I'm like that lady on Bewitched, I want to be nosy.
Ms. Kravitz.
Mrs. Kravitz, right, this is information. Because this is what it's about, because everybody, you know, we all started up from the grind, you understand? Because I came from a household of 11. You know, and I know what my mother went through, my father being a drunk. But I'm also a little educated because I've been hooked up over the years, because I lived in South Providence all my life. But the busing thing had started over there in the late 60s. So I was bused over there to the Mount Pleasant area, you know. But it was tough, and I was glad that I made some time here today, because I want to see what's going on, and I want to see what them guys up at the State House and things like that, and all them, when are they going to stop pushing in the right direction, because they know how to show up in November, August, or whatever, to get that vote, you understand? And you gave out a lot of valid information, and I'm just happy that I made it here for the little time that it is, but I got here. Because the key word to this thing is showing up, giving it a chance, you know? And my pleasure, dear, thank you.
Thank you for your words and thank you for sharing. I wanted to say that I'm not just a Narragansett tribal member. I grew up in Rhode Island, in Providence. I grew up in the projects. I was born in Chad Brown. I was born on I lived on the east side. I lived in Fox Point where it was nothing but drugs flooding the streets. It was probably the biggest drug syndicate here. So I would like, in Crook Manor, you already know that. But I would like to share this. Where I am today is because of where I was yesterday. And I had a mother whose ears and heart was open to the whole struggle and was a part of it and played a part in it. And I just know that when you speak of Africans not liking Black Americans, and you speak of that as someone who has children by an African, am I correct?
Yes.
So you heard stories and you know what's going on in those circles that many of us don't. But white supremacy does not just belong with the white man. That is a behavior. That is a pattern. You can probably speak better on white supremacy. Who can I get that to? And where does that go? Is it just the white man who practices white supremacy? Or does he pour it into the hearts and the spirits of others to do these dirty deeds? Because we have bad leadership here in Rhode Island.
I think one of the things that I found out, and this is all from prison, because I read. I'm reading the radical psychologies, I'm reading the feminism, I'm reading all this other stuff. And the thing that it allowed me to see was how much oppressed people internalize their oppressor's culture.
Yes.
And you gotta figure out, we came here in slave ships, we've been here for 100 years now. All that is in us as well. And it's been in us so long that when we come together with good intentions to organize and to fight, some of them behaviors come out and we destroy our best intentions. We just destroy it ourselves. You know, so when you look at the Black Panther Party, it's not so much the FBI destroyed it. They did what they were supposed to do, but they really just played on the weaknesses that they saw in the Black Panther Party. So even when the sister spoke, I got my phone and stuff. My psychology readings, I found this, an indigenous radical psychologist who started an organization, I think in Wyoming, it's called the White Buffalo Recovery Center. And what they focused on was intergenerational trauma. And because they wanted to understand, well, why was it so hard to organize in the indigenous communities on the reses and other things? And a lot of the things that they discovered when Black psychologists started to look at it, we had similar problems amongst Black folks. If you've been in this society as long as we have, we harm each other. So in dealing with liberation, you have got to deal with the harm we do to each other as we're trying to bring this monster down. And that's dealing with self-esteem, that's dealing with anti-Black racism. When our folks from Africa come to the United States, they already got an understanding from their communities. Don't mess with them niggas over there. And they talking about us. And we got some pride. We got this new Black pride. We dying to reach out to our folks over there. But that's our internal stuff as peoples that we have to address. And no one can address that but Black folks and sitting down with our folks from the motherland. Every people have got things unique to them. But the internalized stuff is what really destroys us. And if we can't figure out how to factor them kind of radical psychological or healing practices into what we do, we don't deal with the sexisms, the egos, you know, the aggressive behaviors, the submissiveness that we demonstrate amongst ourselves. When if we're going to build a strong movement, we all have to come out of our boxes. We all got to get ready to do it. That means we have to do differently. It can't just be, oh, read this, come to this meeting. We have to create situations where we can be vulnerable enough to learn how to face our own demons.
Are there any other questions out there? I do have a question. When the monster wears a different suit. So we here in Rhode Island, out here you have the DeWolf family, you have Brown University, the Brown family. Now Brown University, the Brown family and the DeWolf family are the biggest slave masters, slave traders of all time, right? Right here. And now they wear a pretty face and pretty language hidden behind a university, bringing all different colors of the rainbow together, but doing the same horrible things, taking our land, swallowing it up, using the students to spread out under the guise of education, educational purposes. So now they broke up all these communities that once were. We spoke of the communities, the young man with the red spoke about how we once were. Everybody on the east side knew South Side knew North Providence, West End, Fox Point. We knew the big families over there. Rather be the Johnsons and Jordans and the Machados and Chad Brown, the Speaks. We knew your family. South Side, right? And we all knew we were community. Brown University took that, went into the veins of each side of town and planted seeds of all these students and made it a big campus. So now our black community is dispersed. We broke them up, right? No place to live. Rents went sky high. They're putting in little spiritual bombs in every area to create all this chaos. And our leadership are getting citations, they're getting raises, they're getting promotions, they're getting all this stuff, and they're happy campers with just that. I'm not happy with my leadership. You know, so what do we do? How do we get the best representation? I mean, we got this party, this presidency taking place right now, and we got to fight over two devils. I'm not cool with it. I want to take a gap year, right? So, what do we do?
I think
Either way, we're screwed.
I think part of what Baba said earlier about being in community and knowing the members of the community and being able to build. You know, I remember when Cleo was here, Cleo Silvers, and she was in this room and she talked about how, you know, when they had the offices in the Bronx and how the people knew, you know, they knew the party members, you know. Sometimes they would go and cook food and bring it down to the office, you know, because the organization was a part of the community. So this is how, like, as you said earlier about that model about, like, instead of calling 911, who do we go to in the collective to say we have something that needs to be addressed? We need some conflict resolution. You know, we might need to do some like work on implicit bias and why do you know, how do we unlearn the things that have been literally like, you know, just injected into us on a daily basis. You know, it takes a lot of work to be able to reject what the system is putting out. You know, it's you know, how I hear from people about like, oh no, you can't change that, you can't. I'm like, what do you mean? People have shown us, you know, they said that mYia Abu-Jamal would never get off a death row. I think they attempted to kill him on Marcus Garvey's birthday, right? And it's like a movement that culminated. I learned that there was a movement happening in the streets that gave courage to Juan Carlos and the other gentlemen at the Olympics when they put their fist up in protest. It was a movement that was happening that literally, like, they had no option, right? You gotta, oh, you won the medal, you gotta get up there and make a statement. And knowing that all of the repercussions that they faced, right? And so we just think time and time again, you know, they told us many of the political prisoners that have come home, they would never come home. They're like, what, you want Mutulu Shakur to be free? He ain't going nowhere. But the movement doesn't stop. You know, all of the Move 9, I think 2 transitioned while they were incarcerated, I believe, right? But they all came home. And that was movement and being able to be persistent and be consistent. And so what they told us, you know, there's a quote from Fidel Castro that said, and I want to get it right, so I don't want to mess up the quote. It says, hold on. Oh no, I have so many quotes on my, if you ever see my email.
She has so many books.
You know, and so I literally, because I try to teach people and share information, right? And so here it goes, Comandante Fidel. He said, what we did yesterday taught us that nothing is impossible. After all, what seemed impossible yesterday was possible today. So nothing will seem impossible tomorrow. You know? And that, like, that's the kind of vibration. Like, when I study history, when I see the sacrifices, and some doesn't even call it a sacrifice, they say it's a call of duty for us to serve the people. It wasn't about sacrifice, you know? And so that's the kind of thing, like, what is it, especially for those that are tapped into, like, social media, because as I said earlier, I don't do social media, but what is it that, what do you tap into when you think about revolution? From what we've heard today, from all of us, what we've shared, and I also want to include Baba Leonard, I mean, the amazing full power artwork that, you know, if you've ever read Prison Writings from Leonard Peltier, I encourage you to get it. I mean, some of his artwork is in there. The artwork of Tom Manning, and how I learned about, so these names that I'm calling, if y'all got paper, you know, you write them down, you know, like, these are the folks that you really want to start to study and see, like, wow, they did what they said was impossible. They said it was impossible. And the fact that George Jackson, Blood in My Eye, which is over there, I can believe that book has been translated over 100 languages across the world. And a lot of our books have, you know, the revolutionary books have been the same way. So other people across the world are also studying. Years ago, one of the buttons on my jacket, I got it from a member of the Dalit Panthers of India, you know, and it's like, wow, they have Black Panthers, it reached all the way to India? Oh, shoot. So these are the things that people don't know. And even some folks from that region don't even know it. And we don't know if it's you know, they're too afraid to know it because what it would maybe bring up. So they're like, I'd rather not know. And so you stay in that place. But just imagine how free your mind becomes when you realize that it is possible to achieve what it is that we say that we want. When, you know, when they said all power to the people, I remember, I think it was Baba Daruba that said it, like, you know, that is a phrase, a way of like the mantra of that movement, that it couldn't be co-opted. Because, you know, like how they say Black Lives Matter, then you got Blue Lives Matter, and this Lives Matter, you know, all these different things, right? So it literally like watered down to some extent what the messaging was supposed to be about. But because so oftentimes people are uprooted movements and they haven't studied what came on the path. As I said, you know, Sankofa tatted on my right middle finger to the system. I have Sankofa tatted on my middle finger here. And Sankofa means to go back and get it. Go back and get it. so that we can be better informed with the beast that we're fighting, with the empire that we're fighting. Because the same empire that we're fighting here in the US is the same empire that we still fight in Jamaica, you know, as I speak of my own country. You know, the same things of like they taken our land, of you know, Rastafari and the elders, where you had people, our ancestors who were buried, and they're like, oh, we're building development here. This is no longer yours. And just take everything off the land and do what they want. So the struggle is there all across the world. And that's one of the things too, of like moving to become an internationalist and how important that is. And that's what allows us to understand that, you know, back when George Bush and the war in Iraq, when that journalist took off the shoe when George Bush thought he was being safe, and he said, this is for the women and children, right? And we all knew that he knew what a consequence was going to be, but this was the opportunity was at hand. I'm in the room with the person that's responsible for the destruction of my people, right, at that moment. And I'm going to take off my shoe, and when you see George Bush like ducking eyes, I mean, whatever victories we can celebrate, right, we celebrate them. And that's also one of the things we want to, you know, infuse into this conversation, that while we know all of the pains and the traumas that still exist in our movements and for our people as we want them home, right, and we want the world to be a better place, we understand that even our ancestors, they always carved out places for joy. Even with what they were going through and what they were navigating, there was something that could not be touched that they had for themselves. And we have to think about that as a movement too. I see my folks here doing the, all right, it's time for dinner and, or brunch.
Yes, sir.
And
Round of applause for the speakers.
My best.
So,